Afternoon, everybody. I am Lauren Grizzard, the program director for the HEAL Coalition here at Tanner Community Development Corporation. The HEAL Coalition has funding to address substance misuse prevention for teens. In the Phoenix metropolitan area, we service primarily South Phoenix, Maryvale, and Central Phoenix. And today we are having our second in the series of webinars that the coalition is instituting in the community. And today's topic will be a conversation on the adverse experiences of COVID as it deals with parents and their children. And so at this point, I will turn the microphone over to Ms. Margaret Carter, and she and Mr. Steve Constante from the National Guard Counter Drug Task Force will implement today's webinar. Margaret?
Hi. Well, thank you, everybody. So my name is Margaret Carter, and I'm the Youth Advisory Board Chair and the HEAL Coalition Vice Chair. What we're going to do today is we're going to have a conversation that as it relates to some parenting, some substance abuse, misuse, and understanding, as well as how it relates to the COVID issues and our surrounding cultural competencies. So what we're talking about today is we're going to see what the global lockdown is and our parents, teachers working from home, the increased BMI, body mass index, and increased substance-related issues. And so my co-facilitator today is Steve Costante. So Steve, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Master Sergeant Steve Constante with the Arizona Counter Drug Task Force, Air National Guard. I'm here to assist, co-facilitate this conversation with Margaret and having a very thought-out conversation on how COVID-19 has impacted all these things in our community. So I'm looking forward to this talk.
Yeah. So, and prior to the COVID hitting in this year, 2019, the global shutdown, and what was the known thing about the conversations that we had with our youth? We all know the commercial about the eggs in the frying pan, right? This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs, right? And of course, the just say no messaging from former President Ronald Reagan's wife, Nancy. So everybody can agree to that, right? So what we're going to talk today is a way that the coronavirus disease has been formally is a novel and aspect of what it does, in which is an upper respiratory tract illness. And that kind of looks a lot like a lot of the things that we go through when we introduce substances into our body. So is this you?
All right. So the National Institute of Health has presented some of these questions, and I want to more in depth get into the audience to ask these questions and reflect on these. So I'm going to go ahead and voice them. Here is, are you having trouble sleeping? Eating or focusing? Are you getting into more frequent conflicts with loved ones? Are you no longer able to enjoy pleasurable activities? If this is you, then you're not alone. I mean, half of the population currently has reported that the coronavirus has negatively impacted their mental health. So I'm gonna open this to everybody and make sure that this is more of like reflection. How do you guys feel about these findings? Do you believe this is an actual true statement of what the National Institute of Health has presented to us?
So can we get some feedback on that?
I do know that in the current environment that we're in, with people just having somewhat, let's say, drastic life changes with regard to having to work from home, with regard to having to try to maintain their career at home and be a school teacher while their children are under quarantine, or not necessarily quarantine, but because schools are requiring their students to take virtual studies instead of being on campus. I do know that certain families are having challenges with regard to adjusting to these changes in their lives.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that nearly half of Americans report is we don't have a lot of data on, though, is that the coronavirus is negatively impacting their mental health, as Steve talked about. So what we want to do today is talk about and teach ourselves and our youth ways to have a two-way conversation in social distancing, social isolation. We want to talk to the youth about the substance-related issues. And what we want to do is help them understand that addiction now is still just as prevalent as it was prior to the COVID. So what we want them to understand is that like 1 in 6 teens have the capacity to become addicted when they try to use, we're talking about marijuana or any substance. So, and some of those youth that return to using other substances graduate to such substances as heroin, cocaine, and meth. We also talk about the polystimulants substance, which is the new thing to us, is fentanyl. And when we don't really get to see that happening now because of the isolation and the social distancing. More Arizona youth today choose marijuana over tobacco. Also, using marijuana it causes some disconnections within the brain, and it decreases our IQ levels tremendously. This is some of the reasons why we have higher numbers of youth drops out of high school. One of the things that we see and we don't really recognize is that 60% of youth that engage in smoking marijuana, alcohol, drinking, or any prescription drugs prior to the age of 24, where the brain growth, that growth in between that brain growth spurt, they are less likely to graduate. Their IQ decreases up to 8 points. Marijuana is the number 2 drug that's used by teens in Arizona. So it's kind of like, the card deck, gamble. The teens and marijuana, we're understanding that it affects a lot of the short-term memory. It increases anxiety and paranoia. We have high increase of panic attacks and lack of coordination. The panic attacks at this stage in the COVID is relevant because we have so many things that relate to COVID-19 that is creating a sense of unknown, the sense of unable to have control over their lives and their situation. So these are some of the reasons why they may try to desensitize themselves from the COVID issues and increase their use of substance use. How it affects the brains and our future, I don't think we have, as parents, a problem when it comes to sharing our own personal beliefs and messages from long ago, do we? I know that personally, we have to have that continuing conversation. We have to have that ongoing messaging given to each youth. The brain is simple to see the harmful effects of using marijuana. There's the inability to recall simple messages that can lead to mental discomfort, such as the anxiety and the paranoia. Today, we also see increase with the panic attacks. The body is also affected in several different ways, like our lungs, in which the lung has an increase of infection. And this is what we're going to share with you today, because the lungs and the infection is where the COVID rests, and it resides in our respiratory system. So it decreases a lot of our body's functions, and we really don't know all the things that it does to the youth. What happened when in the testing phase, in the beginning of all this, all the adults got their testing, but the youth weren't getting tested. So now we have this residual effect, and we have this round 2 episodic episodes. I don't know what word to put in there, but we have this round 2 effect of it. And could it be because we didn't test the youth at the same time we tested ourselves, the adults? So we don't know. What do you think? One of the things we wanted to recognize that prior to the global outbreak of the pandemic, the family appear to have open, ongoing experiences that fulfill the daily routine of our lives. People felt safe and had a sense of direction. It didn't matter where you came from, what there were some positives and some negative influences that seemed to work out at the end of the day. But right now, we still have that uncertainty. We continue to look at the changes that we're now facing when we see COVID. It has brought with it some effects as it relates to our minds, bodies, and our overall health situations. We see increased heart and higher risk of heart attacks and irregular heartbeats when we use marijuana. We have a high risk of addiction when we use RX drugs and your health. One of the things that, that we want the youth to know is the different things in what we talk about with the pain relievers, such as Oxycontin and Vicodin. They create a impaired reaction to time, and it causes your body to have nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. And these are the same kind of issues that you see with COVID. So it's kind of hard to estimate what actually is going on. And so our conversation has to be for the youth to understand that our bodies change and these things change, but we also have to stay safe in this situation. The RX stimulants are like Adderall and Ritalin. They increase the heart rate. It becomes rapid, creating panic attacks, paranoid, and psychosis. This is the way to increase the heart rate that cause further damage, such as increased risk of having the heart attack. And the RX sedatives like Xanax and Valium sends the body in another direction that decreases breathing. You can have slurred speech patterns and brain functions and become slower, and we lose judgment and coordination.
So going with everything that Margaret has talked about in regards to prescription drugs and substance abuse with teens, this is now becoming an emerging crisis because along with overdose, along with COVID, deaths that are happening prevalent right now, the next amount of people dying is people that are overdosing through opiates and then suicide as well. This is the next one up there as well. So it's becoming an emerging crisis because people are not thinking about that part of what we're, the crisis and epidemic that we're doing with opioids and any substance abuse. So the National Institute of Health actually created a fact sheet. And then they asked, why is it happening? What's going on? What's the reason that COVID has really affected the youth and people in general of what's going on right now currently? So a lot has to do with social isolation, work-related stress, depending on, obviously for adults and that are working, work-related ergonomics, meaning that work environment, where they are at, if they're doing work, like hard labor. Managing that stress of being at home has also impacted the community in regards to how this COVID has just literally exacerbated everything that in regards to what we do, has changed the whole way of life and whatnot. So now a lot of these things we have to look and how we're going to be better at this right now. So going on, I think one of the things that we have to look into is that we don't have enough data to relate to how COVID is affecting overdose deaths yet. We have something that we go on, and recently, for example, the Washington Post has reported that through all overdoses that are non-fatal, some of them non-fatal, have jumped 18%. In March compared to last year, and 29% in April and 42% in May. And that's according to the Overdose Detection Mapping Application Program. This is a federal initiative that collects data from ambulance teams, hospitals, and police. So this is stuff that's getting reported. Now, obviously, there's stuff that doesn't get reported, and the numbers are much higher, but that's what gets reported. And that's a high jump from last year's numbers. So that in itself is becoming a concern as to how COVID has affected mental health and obviously substance abuse and misuse. the New York Times also presented another article that has presented this as a national relapse trigger. Just in Erie County, New York, 85 people died of overdoses during the first 4 months of this year. That's up 100% from last year's numbers. So and that's a few articles, and along with that, we've talked about stuff that, here is hitting home. Dr. Chris from the Arizona Department of Health Services has made it clear that overdoses and suicides has increased because of COVID and the social isolation that we're having right now. And this also more importantly affects the people of color. Now, recently, SAMHSA, which is Substance Abuse Mental Health Association, has presented that and since April 15th, African American people who comprise 13% of the U.S. population make up 30% of COVID-19 cases, and that's just as of April. And then why is that? Because people of color often are working jobs that are, we have to be interacting with other people, so you're more at risk of being infected. Along with that, people of color use public transportation. So that's another way of potentially getting exposed to COVID-19. So with all those stressors, all those things that are pretty much working against you, our mental health is being tested here. So this is where it creates this whole what relapse trigger that the New York Times is saying, where people have used substance to kind of cope through these times and affected the amount of doses and overdose deaths from that.
Yeah, one of the things that we want to get to be able to do is to talk about how to stay safe in the COVID situation. We want to make sure that we're feeling well, we're staying well. So one of the things that we have several tips here that help with practice safe medicine storage at home. When traveling, we want to make sure that you have your medications in a secure location. Never leave your medications out on the counter. It's a good idea to purchase a medication lockbox, and HEAL, we kind of have a lot of lockboxes that we donate to certain people. If you have need of those, we give those when we have our presentations for our RX360 drug prevention program, which benefits the community. We want to never leave medicines or vitamins on the kitchen counter, the nightstands, or at a sick child's bed. So always relock the safety cap on the medicine bottles. A lot of times we see that the test caps to make sure that it's locked and it's in place. You want to talk to your children about the importance of only taking medications by a trusted adult, because today so many different medications look like gummy bears or candy. So, we don't really want to entice them, and we want to be able to protect them from those types of overdosing. We want to make sure that those kind of medications are not at, see how you see this, the medicine cabinet's open, and the door's not there, but all the prescriptions are at the range. Looks like all the vitamins are at top, but the prescriptions are on the bottom, on the lower shelf. So it's easy accessible to the youth. It shouldn't even be in there in the first place. We want to make sure that we remind people that do come to visit your house, babysitters, house guests, and visitors, to keep their medications out of reach, to make sure they put them in their purses and make sure it's locked away. Because teens, they have curiosity. They have a way of accessing some personal belongings to other people, and they get these things. We also want to talk about our what happens when we have leftover medication. One of the things that leftover medication does, and I just want to interact here and just ask you, what do you think happens? Oh, well, anyway, but what do you think could happen besides what's up here on the leftover medication?
No, I think sometimes you get people sharing medication that's like, oh, I have some extra. You don't have to go get that prescription filled. You can have this. It'll do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And that creates an overall, because the medication is not prescribed for that person. It's prescribed for specific weight, size, issue for individual. Even though it may say the same thing, it's still a different reason why that person has that medication in that dose. So leftover, medication, when we don't take all our medication, we hold on to it a lot longer. And then one of the things that's very important to know is that it becomes outdated. Old medication, we hold on to it instead of going to the doctor. It's very unwise and it's very risky. Self-medicating, even with your old medication, can lead to delayed treatments or more serious medical problems.
I think something else that people tend to do is once they start feeling better, they may not complete the cycle of medication that their doctor prescribed.
Yeah.
They may start feeling better two days before the end of the cycle that their doctor prescribed, or maybe 3 or 4 days, which would leave perhaps a handful of medication left over. And then sometimes you wind up holding on to that. And if you haven't finished it, that ailment may crop back up because you didn't do it all was necessary to really knock it down. And so they end up running back into their old supply.
Yeah, we could put that to the COVID time frame for isolation, when we get sick too, right? Because generally they want you to have that 2-week span, especially if you travel back and forth to another state, or you've been in contact with someone who has the COVID positive virus. And so we start to feel better, and then all of a sudden we're ready to run back out into the community. That's the same thing that we're needing to learn and teach ourselves, that we have to be patient with the illness that's happening around us, as well as, taking our medication, staying that social distancing, the 6 feet away, and the covering, using masks is all a part of our opportunity to save a life and help another person, as well as, that's a way of connecting us with the lifestyle of having extra energy, extra time with medication. Did that make sense? Steve, you have anything to add?
No, I mean, with regards to the whole safeguarding, that's the biggest key for us, especially in our task forces, is making sure that the drugs that are prescribed to you are only used by you or the person that is prescribed through, making sure that kids are aware of what the dangers are if you don't do that. Having those talks early with your youth is important, because sometimes I feel like, peer pressure, I even want to say, and I know that it's probably going to go on a different tangent, but even our culture, our pop culture, in like almost like glorifies the fact that they're using prescription drugs is the way to go, and that's where we have to go against that mindset of having these kids being influenced by things that are not, obviously are not good for them. Having those talks early is important.
So what is one of the talks that each one of you can have with your youth about medication and the safe storage, and how do you dispose it?
One of the things I stress to a lot of my little nieces and nephews, especially the small ones, is if they see anything or they find something, just bring it to your mom and dad or to your Uncle Clyde, because it's not candy and it's nothing you want to hold on to. So I make sure, because like we say, some of the things, sometimes people leave medicine out on the cabinet and all that kind of stuff. So I tell them, hey, that's not candy, bring it to me, or take it to your mom or dad. And then one of the other things we can also do with youth to talk to them about with these things is not to accept pills from other people.
Right.
Which is one of the things I think we had in one of the other, what you call these things, bullets or charts or
Slides.
whatever. One of those other things you do is if somebody offers you something, do not take it.
Yeah, because so much of our medication looks so much like candy. Even your vitamins, their gummies, and the your prescriptions, they're making them sweeter, and so many ways that the youth and the kids will get a hold of that. And one of the things that we want to make sure that we don't do when we dispose of our medication is we want to make sure that, first, I forgot to tell you about tearing the labels off the bottles, because people can get your labels and take that. But the safe disposal, you don't want to throw it in the trash. It can leave them open. It can be misused by other people. You don't want to flush it down the toilet because it makes the water bad. You don't want to pour them down the drain. One of the things, so it can all do with that, is it creates more pollution, and our water becomes tainted, and our society becomes messed up. One of the things you want to do is ask your pharmacist about prescription drug take back. I think who's on the line? Lauren, you want to tell us about what take back is?
Sure. What take back is an opportunity for people to go through their homes and find and locate any unused or outdated prescription medication. As Margaret said, it is not wise to put them down the toilet because they get into our water system. It's not wise to put them in the trash because people will go through your trash and find unused medications and use them to get addicted and so on. So the best thing to do is just take them to receptacles that are set up to receive unused medications. And some can be found in certain drugstores like Walgreens and CVS. You have to be able to know which ones have them. Some police substations have the receptacles. And then other methods you can use to get rid of your unused medications is there is two systems. One is called a doTERRA bag, and it is a bag that's it's about less than a foot high and about 2 or 3 inches wide. You rip the top off, you put your unused medications in there, put water in it, and fill it up, and there will be a chemical reaction that will render the medications harmless. There's also a pill bottle size where you put the pills inside the bottle, add water, and it does the same thing. And then you can just throw them in the trash. But there are all kinds of methods to dispose of your unused medications. I think Margaret was asking about the take back. And what happens is about twice a year, various prevention agencies and law enforcement agencies implement what's called a take back. And that's an opportunity for you to drive up to a place and actually get rid of your unused meds. But those are only twice a year. So one of the things that they are encouraging people to know is where permanent drop boxes are.
Yeah. So I don't want to take my medication in because then I'll be looked at as a person who has all these drugs. Then won't the police be after me after that?
No. The answer is no. However, in the community that we live in, particularly communities of color, asking people to go to the police station with items like that, in most cases, they're not going to do that because there's various levels of trust with certain agencies that we have to interact with. And so you pose a good question, Margaret. Some people would not feel comfortable going to a police station with unused medications. However, we do have resources with Walgreens. One of the things we found is that there's not a lot of them in South Phoenix area, in areas, say, south of the river bottom, south of Broadway. So we are working to get drop boxes, permanent drop boxes, established in that area. But Walgreens does have them located in various places throughout the valley.
Yeah. So thank you, Lauren. One of the things that you can do is you can go online and you can look up, the Arizona Criminal Justice Commission, and you can see where you can find the places for the RX misuse and abuse initiative, and it'll help you locate areas in your area. Well, that didn't make sense, but anyway, it'll help you locate ways to find um, drop boxes or just places to put your medication at pharmacies where it's safe. You can look up www.fda.gov and for consumers, and that'll help you also find ways to help keep yourself safe and your home safe. A lot of it has information on child youth care and the things that you would do to prevent overdosing. You would have the crisis line on there. It would have the child's poison, CDC poison control, and everything on those websites. So there's a lot of information out there, and we just touched on a small portion today. This is an experiment based off of how to talk about our conversation with COVID and how the COVID can look like substance use. It can mimic conditions that we have ongoing with increased overdoses, and a lot of the things that we're not really saying, and we don't really have the experience to know, is that the data hasn't been out there, so we can't tell you if the child is actually overdosed because of substance, or their lungs have been filled up with infection and they died from that. So we don't have that data yet. Do I have any questions, any comments?
Good job, Margaret.
So
I enjoyed this presentation.
Hold on. Okay. So one of the things we have is the next step. Steve?
All right. So next steps. I mean, some things that we know away from safeguarding our prescription drugs, we have to look in ways of taking care of ourselves, especially this time more than ever. A lot of it has to be self-care that we have to look into. For example, are you getting enough sleep? Are you getting your 7 and 8 hours throughout your per night, throughout the day, whatever. Healthy eating, it's important. Are you eating healthy? Are you, socializing? Granted, saying that it's going to be like, well, how can you socialize if you're should be socially distanced? Well, there's many ways. We're doing it right now. Zoom meetings. Doing that with loved ones. Doing that FaceTime or Zooms throughout your, the holiday season is important because that's your way of connecting. Having those phone calls, checking up on family members and friends. That actually helps the socializing part of during this time. Exercising, that's important in itself. We have to exercise, get ourselves going, going outside or running, at home, doing they have a lot of YouTube stuff that you can download and look and do exercise while you're inside home. And then relaxing, meditation. Last month, I believe Clyde and Calvin did a self-regulation part of how we could meditate and take some time for ourselves to kind of just relieve some of that stress that we have and the anxiety that we're going through. Away from that is make sure that you take care of yourself before you start taking care of other people. Granted, people, we need to make sure that we have the ability to help others and reaching out to them when they're struggling. And if something's really going really bad, always get professional help, get the help that you need, and having that responsibility of yourself saying, hey, I need to see somebody because I'm not going through a good time right now. But anyone care to share a way of getting through these times of uncertainty? This is just a few things that I mentioned. Obviously, keep using your safe mask is important, especially now. And then washing your hands. But away from that, does anybody want to share how they're coping through these times of uncertainty?
Well, one of the things that I've done, and, I think one of the key things are other people, although you cannot see them or actually be around them. So one of the things I've done is I've instituted phone calls day. So on Monday, I called a certain group of people. Monday and Tuesday, I usually try to call people that I went to college with. Wednesday, I try to call my fraternity brothers, whether I know them or not. I'll just go down the list and just call just to say hi to them. Thursday, is that's my anybody call day. So whoever I feel like talking to, that's who I call. Friday is family day, and I try to call a family member I haven't talked to in a long time, or I try to call one of my nieces or nephews. I'm all the way down to great nieces and nephews. So I call one of them or whatever, and then on Saturday and Sunday, that's when I normally call my church folks and stuff. And so that's one of the things I've done that helped me get through this time is calling people and just letting them know that I'm thinking about them. And the thing is that I don't take voicemails and stuff when I call these people. For it to count, I have to actually talk to them. I can't just call them and leave a voicemail. I have to actually talk to them for it to count. So I try to do that at least 2 to 3 of that group on their day.
Yeah, that's very good, Clyde. I thank you like that. Thank you for that. One of the things that I like to do that I wasn't real good at self-care. So I've gotten to a place to where I take time out for myself, whether it be a whole day or half a day. And I don't have to tell anybody where I'm going, what I'm doing. I really just get away, get by myself and do what I want to do. And that has helped me to be able to feel a little bit better about the work, because I work for a lot of people. I do a lot of things with people, and I'm always telling them what I need to be doing or doing something that they want me to do. So I've learned to self-care and shut it down, shut me down, and get away from other people.
Okay, and following up with Margaret, sometimes I have my mental health days when I just really don't want to talk to anybody. And also in line with what Clyde said about, having a schedule to try to connect with folks or call people. In addition, the good age-old practice of dropping somebody a card or actually writing somebody a letter, that is something that will definitely last, that if you cannot speak to them in person again for a while, they have some communication from you. And the other thing that I do for my sisters that I've known since I was 13 years old, every 2 months, we schedule a Zoom call. And, just for 2 hours, we just kind of reminisce about how we were coming up, share pictures. For this one, I asked them to share some recipes, and also to remember to be grateful and thankful because we can't get together with family this year. But if they are able to do a FaceTime or a Skype with some of their family members that they can't reach, that they can have a corporate prayer with them and then get on with their meal.
Well, thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I from time to time, there's some Instagram people that I follow, but they have positive words that they speak of and positive energy that they're always putting out. And that helps me a lot. Sometimes I can't get away. Sometimes I can't get to other people. So it helps if I can just take a few moments and just read some very positive, inspiring quotes and comments from other people that have posted. That helps me to kind of give my mind a uplifting for a little while. And then also exercise is paramount for me. If I'm not moving, I'm not any good. I hurt. So getting out and exercising, and I start with something small. Sometimes I just start with 20 minutes. If I can just take that 20 minutes a day or 5 minutes a day, just to get away from everything and just have a moment to breathe and relax and clear my mind, it really helps me start getting on track to doing something deeper and something further down the line.
I'm with Floristine. I had to go into the garage and pull out the bicycle and dust it off and oil it and pump up the tires because I was getting pretty good at going to the gym, going to the YMCA. And of course, they closed those down. And even though they opened it up and said, you can come on where you put your name down and come in at a time, appointments.
Yes, scheduled appointments, yes.
But even then, I'm still not real trusting of the gyms and things right yet. So we've had to move our activities to outside, to where we're at least walking riding our bikes, walking the dog, and things like that. So I'm like you, Faustina. I have to be moving. And if I'm not, I get stiff and I get lethargic and just don't want to do anything. So I have to exercise. And I like to take naps. I love my daily afternoon nap, anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes. I love it.
Outstanding.
Self-care.
All right. Anybody else?
So what I've done, like just on a normal basis, is granted this is a time for reflection too, and I've things that I have not done in a while, and I know I might get kind of spiritual here a little bit, but I have actually been in touch with God more, building that relationship with God, and that's helped me a lot through a lot of my challenges right now, and has actually motivated me to go and talk to people and helping them. Because I think when we sit there and help others and talk to them and just have see what they're going through, their struggle, it actually is like a win-win in some way. We both win in that environment and that conversation. So I think that has helped me a lot. And then exercising, going outdoors. I have a 3-year-old son that's fully active, full of energy, and I have to keep up with them. And if I don't, then it's going to be like, well, I'll be probably lethargic, like Lauren said, where I'll be like, okay, I'm already beat. I can't keep up with you. But I try to keep up with him as much as I can.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steve.
One of my people that I follow on Instagram is doing 365 days of gratitude, which every day he comes with a different thing that he's grateful for. And just seeing that is inspiring, and it gives you hope, and it makes you happy. And I mean, he has gotten so happy over this time frame. You can see the change in him just by himself. So it's really helpful to be grateful and thank God for what we do have and where we are, even though we may not be where we want to be, but we are where God wants us to be. So we need to be grateful and thankful for what we have. And just every day, if you can just think of 5 things that you're grateful for, it really does lift your spirits, and it really changes your attitude big time. So being grateful helps.
Well, you stole my thunder, Flo. I was going to give you guys Miss Jackie, are you still here?
I'm still here.
Oh, well, we didn't hear from you.
Well, that's because I didn't have anything to say.
Sure you do. How do you do your self-care?
Oh, my goodness. It probably just depends on what day it is.
Okay.
Well, the biggest thing is that my church has a connectional prayer line that connects the CME church across the connection, East Coast, West Coast, anywhere, any coast you're on. They start early, and by the time they get to us, it's 6:30 in the morning. So I find that's a good way to begin the day.
Yeah.
Sort of helps you kind of sort out things. And the other part of it is I've decided that there's some things that I just can no longer do. So I figured what those are, and I don't let that worry me anymore.
I agree with you, Jackie.
And a lot of the things that you do because of your involvement, whether it's professional or whatever, you find out that maybe some of those things were really not that necessary.
Right.
So you learn to prioritize and say, well, that we don't really have to keep doing this every week, because we can now ask the question why. So all those kind of things.
Yeah. I told someone recently that no is also an answer. So even though people ask you to do something, you can say no, and that's
right.
a very good answer, and it's healthy for you to be able to say that and not feel guilty about it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. I guess we've come to the end of our road, but one of the things I want to leave you with is me, and I didn't tell any Steve or anybody I was going to do this, but I'm throwing scripture and stuff. It says, reserve a daily time with God for self-examination, Bible reading and prayer in order to know God and his will for my life and to gain the power to follow his will. So with the COVID, I didn't bring it with me, but I have my mask and it says, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. And what I do with that is when I put my mask on, it helps me decrease the fears and anxiety that I'm feeling about how the world is changing. And I give that to the kids. I tell the kids that, yes, we have to be safe. Yes, we have to take care of other people. But you also have to know that there's a bigger control, and that's God. And so that's what I give them, and that's what I use to maintain my sobriety, maintain my health, and maintain my sanity. So with all of those things, we are able to share the message with other people. And this is what the coalition does so well, is it shares the message of prevention and as it relates in substance abuse, bullying, suicide, and the RX drugs, use, misuse. And I didn't give you guys the question of the use versus misuse, but I think we've run out of time. But so that's for the next webinar. So I just wanted to leave you guys. I want to thank you guys for coming. And anybody else, any leaders have anything they want to share? No. Steve, thank you so much. You want to close us out?
No, thank you, Mario, for the opportunity to co-facilitate this with you. I mean, it's a great conversation, seeing a lot of different perspectives of how people have been coping through these uncertain times, right? And I think this is a great conversation that can lead to a lot of other conversations down the line, for future webinars or conversations that we're calling it now with the coalition. I believe the next one will probably be in regards to safeguarding prescription drugs. So this is actually a good segue to get to that next one that's coming up pretty soon. Other than that, I think we're good to go. And I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and be safe.
Our next webinar will be January. And so it will be based on the what is it, the Take Back event?
Yeah.
But thank you. But look for us also on December
1st.
December 1st. Okay, we have another one. So
Yeah.
with that, I'll pass.
Yes, that one will be a discussion group on fentanyl, counterfeit pills, and psychostimulants, primarily meth, in our community. And I know we don't know a lot about that, maybe the meth use, but the other stuff is kind of new to us. But we need to begin to examine that and how it may be affecting people in our community as well. So that will be Tuesday, December the 1st at 6 p.m. It'll be an evening focus discussion group. And so I just sent out the invitation for it. So if you can attend, great. And if you can forward that on to someone else who you think might be who might have valued input as well, we would have certainly appreciate it.
Thank you, Flo.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate. Touching base.
Okay.
Right, fantastic.
Happy
Everything
Thanksgiving.
Happy
Thank you.
Thanksgiving, everybody. May
Good
God bless
Thanksgiving,
you.
Florence. Thank you so much.
Who's making the ham? I'm coming.
No ham.